Allman in the Morning. Common Sense Radio.
I was a child walking with
8:38. Of course, Judy's on the line, but I can't take it. I want to get to Chris, but she says she's concerned about splitting the ticket. It doesn't help Trump. It's true. If Trump gets elected president, he's going to need a Republican Senate to get what he needs done. That's why it's all the more important for these senators like Toomey and these guys to get on board with Trump, because they're going to lose if they don't. But I'll run that by Chris Wallace of Fox News Sunday and of Fox News in general. And boy, first of all, before we even start with anything, my friend, a big round of applause for your performance as one of the greatest moderators in presidential debate history. That was awesome.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I must say the response has been wonderful, and I'm happy, obviously, for me, but I'm also happy for Fox News because it was a big moment for Fox. I was the first Fox moderator for a general election, and not the primaries, but the general election with the two nominees of the parties. And I felt that weight, that I was representing not just myself, but also Fox. And I'm glad it turned out well for all concerned.
It was such a service to this country. It felt so weighty and so important, and the questions were so directed, and it gave us a chance to really see the differences in their policy approaches, everything else. And so I wish actually maybe you had done the first debate and set the tone for the rest of them, but nonetheless, it was great to see. Now, you know how I like to brag about how right I am in my predictions and things? Do you know that?
Yes, I told you so, Gene, that you have, yes.
Yes.
When I speak, it just comes to pass.
So I'm interviewed on another radio show prior to the debate, and they ask me about you, and they say, how do you think Chris Wallace is going to do as the moderator? What do you think is going to happen, blah, blah, blah. Can I play you my response on that radio show?
Sure.
Okay, here you go.
I expect it to be very serious. I mean, Chris Wallace is a serious guy. I think the debate is in good hands for basically both of them, really. I mean, this will be where you really are able to test their skill in being able to answer policy questions, because I think it will be heavy on policy, and at least I hope it is. And so Trump needs to be ready for that. If he's thinking at all in terms of preparation, he shouldn't be preparing for the groping question. He ought to be preparing for the trade, economy, foreign policy questions, because Wallace will be pretty straight up. It'll be pretty meat and potatoes, I think, and I hope.
So that was my prediction, and all of it came true. And I said, Chris Wallace doesn't even like to be hugged. He's not going to talk about groping for 90 minutes.
No, I did talk about it, but
yeah,
I very conscious. You had to. I mean, it was one of the big news developments. But and there was an advantage to being the third one, because you could see what was left on the table, and it seemed to me that the viewers, the voters, were hungry for some meat, for some policy, and so I made a very conscious decision not to ask about the groping allegations and the foundation and all of that stuff for the first 45 minutes. And you know, I started with the Supreme Court, and then I went to immigration, and then I went to the economy, and, you know, we had to get to it, and we did. But I wanted to at least start because I thought people were hungry for it, and it was sort of what hadn't been covered. I mean, imagine, here we were 3.5 hours into presidential debates, and he'd never discussed the Supreme Court or immigration. Pretty amazing.
Or the national debt, for crying out
right,
loud.
Which we got to also.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Now, it was also fun to watch you manage the audience, because people would pipe up, and then you get involved and say, hey, calm down. They go, yes, Mr. Wallace. I mean, you had those folks like totally under control.
One of my favorite emails, you know, I probably got 1,000 emails, and one of them was from somebody I didn't know saying, you reminded me of the babysitter who our parents used to get, who was so scary that we'd all be in bed by 8:30 because we were intimidated. So I thought, well, that was good.
That's a great analogy, because
I do have the feeling, and that again is something that I learned from the debates. If you don't set a firm marker, you know, it's like a football game. You know, sometimes the refs call it close, and sometimes they call it loose and let them play, which means that they foul a lot. My feeling was if you didn't call it tight right at the beginning, they were going to walk all over me. So I just called it tight. I hope I wasn't, you know, obnoxious, but I was just trying to say let's this is serious. Let's take care of business here.
Right. And now, when you, before the debate, like, for instance, 2 hours before the debate, what are you doing? Are you going to the steam room? Are you having
Well, no, I was in Las Vegas. I was playing slots, and I was on a heater. So I was really quite upset that they said, "Now, Chris, you got to go." No, I mean, I was just preparing at that point. But the interesting thing, and what really did help me a lot, is the day before, they had two students. This is on Tuesday before the Wednesday of the debate. They had two students from UNLV and at the podiums, and I was at my desk in my chair. So you're getting used to the physical surrounding. And one of the things that you don't get a sense of on TV is it's really much smaller, as you know from TV. Oftentimes things seem bigger on TV than they are in reality. For instance, the two podiums were tilted slightly towards each other from edge to edge, point to point. The two podiums were 8.5 feet away from each other.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they were pretty close. And so we did a run-through debate with these two students, and the topic was favorite pizza. and so they each gave their 2-minute opening statement, and then they went back and forth. And one of the things that I realized was it was very, very useful because they were going, and they'd been instructed to interrupt each other and go at each other and come at me. And the result of it was that I realized that for all of the preparation, and I had done enormous preparation and research and had my questions and had the bullet points as backup in case somebody contested it, I also had, I realized that a lot of what I was going to have to be doing was making seat-of-the-pants decisions in real time as to, when do you intervene, when do you not, that this was not going to be, after they got their 2 minutes each, that there was going to be a lot of interrupting, and you were going to have to decide on the fly when you were going to intervene and when you were just going to let them go at each other. And that was very useful just in sort of getting my head around that before the debate.
Speaking of pizza, do you eat before something like this?
Yes.
Oh, you do?
Absolutely. Well, you have to understand, it's at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock in St. Louis. It was at 6 o'clock in Las Vegas on Pacific time, and I know, I don't do well if I have low blood sugar, so around 3:30 I had a little something to eat just so I wouldn't have one of those Snickers moments in the middle of the debate.
Now, afterwards, did you pop champagne and get all crunked up and everything and have fun, or
I had fun. Well, I mean, I had really, I can't tell you how stressful it is. I feel like I've done everything in this business, but I have to say, if you've not done a general election presidential debate, you're in a different category from people who have, because there is a sense of tension when you go out on that stage, and particularly here, because it's not just, it's Mrs. Romney or whatever. I mean, on one corner, it's Melania Trump. On one side, it's Melania Trump and the entire family. On the other side, it's Bill and Chelsea Clinton.
Yeah.
So, and I will say that was a funny moment, too, interesting moment. When I finally did get to the groping question, and it was a 2-minute question, so they each were going to get to answer it, and I had to ask Trump about, all these women have come forward in the last week and say that you touched them inappropriately or groped them, and then because I had to have something for Hillary to answer, and I said, that, and Trump says, Secretary Clinton, that what you and your husband did to women was even worse. As those words were coming out of my mouth, and I suddenly realized that Bill and Chelsea Clinton are right over my shoulder. That it wasn't like practicing it in my hotel room. That was a more awkward moment, I have to say.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now so then afterwards, then did you did you go party? I mean, because
party's the wrong word, but we were staying at the Encore Hotel, which is one of the Wynn properties there. That's where the Commission on Presidential Debates put us up, and I must say, pretty nice place.
Yeah.
And for the first time in about 2 weeks, I had my son there and my wife, and we had some friends, and we all went to the Sinatra restaurant, which is a great restaurant there, Italian, obviously, and we chowed down and drank down, and nothing crazy, but yes, I enjoyed myself.
I was very happy for you. Now, at the end, that last question about the accepting the results thing, did you
But that wasn't the last. That was in the middle of what I call the fitness section. That was about an hour into it.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't know why it seemed like it was the last one, but so that was obviously something you had planned on asking. That was something that you had to get an answer from. Now, were you surprised by Donald Trump's answer?
I can't say I was surprised because, if there's one thing I've learned in the course of these last 15, 18 months, whatever it is of the Trump candidacy, is nothing should surprise you. So, in other words, a surprise is not a surprise. It's what you expect. But I thought it was pretty dramatic. And then I ad-libbed that follow-up question, which was basically to say, this is one of the tenets and one of the strengths of our democracy, the idea of the peaceful transition of power and that, no matter how hard-fought a campaign is, I wanted to put it in a historical context. So if Trump was going to say what he ended up saying, which is, I'll keep you in suspense, I'm going to think about it, I wanted that out there because that was a pretty dramatic moment, I thought.
Yeah, and you know what? I thought that he mostly meant that, listen, I don't know what's going to happen here, and it was kind of like I remember Al Gore, and I
don't agree with that.
You don't think so?
No, because if he had wanted to, he could have said that, and that would have been a different thing. If he wanted to say, well, look, of course I'm going to accept the results. I mean, if it's a contested election, if it's 2,000 and there's 500 votes in Florida, I reserve the right to have a recount. That would have been one thing.
Right.
And nobody would have said boo about that. That isn't what he said. And he kind of tried to clean it up a couple of days later, but that isn't what he said, and he certainly should have been prepared for the question. One of the reasons I asked it was because it was one of the big questions to his running mate, to Mike Pence, on the Sunday shows that 3 days before, and he had said that Trump and he would absolutely, his words, respect the results of the election. So he should have been prepared for that.
Yeah, well, given the news cycle, I guess that kind of came and went, the response and the reaction to it. But nonetheless, as a matter of history, though, that was a great debate. And did you, in the end, do you go up and talk to them afterwards, or
no? They came to me. They came off the stage or came behind their podiums, and first Secretary Clinton came, and it was pretty quick. She said, good job or something, or thank you. And then this was different than the other debates because in the past the families had been able to just walk up on the stage, but they had barriers, even in front of Bill and Chelsea. And so she turned to me and she said, can I go down there? There were a few steps leading down to where the audience was, and I said, Secretary Clinton, I think you can do whatever you want. And she walked down and she went them. And Trump waited until she had come and gone. And they, by the end of the debate, it was like Keith Jackson talking about a rivalry football game. These two just plain don't like each other. He came, and he was a little bit more at length, and he said, good job. In fact, I think it was the best of the debate, so that was nice.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's great. It's interesting how you had them so trained or so kind of, in line that Hillary even had to ask you whether she could go down to the thing. So that was even after the debate.
No, Secretary Clinton, you can't go down there,
Right,
and
exactly.
You're going to have to wait to see your husband in the holding room.
Yeah, you should have told her you have 2 minutes.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, great. So we'll be tuning into Fox News, but again, I have to tell you, and you don't need to hear it from me, but we were all very proud of you, and really proud to say that you're on our show every week, and it was really a moment, man. I'm telling you, very nice job.
Well, it's funny because afterwards, it's turned out obviously to be really good, and Tom Hanks did me on Saturday Night Live that weekend and stuff. But I didn't know. I literally, genuinely didn't know. I knew I hadn't had a disaster, but I really didn't have a sense of what it was. And I was on the plane, Southwest Airlines, flying back from Las Vegas the next day. And I'm too cheap usually to get airplane Wi-Fi, but I thought this time I should. And as I started seeing the hundreds and hundreds of emails that came in and the reviews from people, that I turned to Lorraine, my wife, and I said, This went pretty well, didn't it? And I didn't know until then that it really had.
Yeah, left and right. It was all accolades.
That's pretty unusual in this day and age. But yes, left and right. It seemed to be fairly unanimous.
Well, great. Well, good talking to you. We'll be tuning in on Fox News Sunday for sure.
Yeah, we're going to have some top person from each of the campaigns. We're also talking to Reince Priebus because, there's not just the presidential race. There's also the question, and I heard you just talking about it, about the Senate. And, even if Clinton wins, the question as to who controls the Senate and the House, which is also up for grabs, is a big deal. So we'll be talking about all of that on Sunday. It'll then be just 9 days before the election.
Right on. Well, Chris Wallace, thanks again. Appreciate you being with us.
You bet.
We'll be tuning in. Thank you.